My experience on the pill was fine. I stopped out of pure curiosity, curious if I'll feel any different without it.
But it ended up leaving me with a lot of questions and frustrations. So I turned my curiosity to other women. What was their experience like?
And most importantly, why aren't we talking about it?
I was just in constant pain.
Endometriosis, polycystic ovaries.
How is this a thing that, like, if you don't know, you just don't know? Like, no one's gonna tell you because we don't really talk about it?
If this means I can't have kids and it's something I've always wanted.
But I did like it. I felt like I was way more in touch with my emotions.
How about I get a vasectomy? And I was like, oh. So I started taking birth control when I was 15, I think.
Maybe when I was like 14, 15.
I started when I was 15, mainly just because I met my boyfriend then, so.
I was in a relationship at the time.
Because when I was 16, you start to get like relationships, and
we thought it would be best for me to go on an hormonal something to be able to, can I say sex? Yeah, to be able to. I thought it was the only option or the best option, so that's why I started.
I had just had really heavy periods, and that was what they told me to do.
So I started birth control, which was very natural. It seemed like a very logical thing to do. There was also not really talk of anything else at the time, I think.
So I was given birth control because for the first 2 years of me getting my period, it was super irregular, super heavy. I would get it every 4 months, then it would last for 10 days.
I had horrible periods from the moment I got my period. And I just thought I was just unlucky, like one of those girls who just has a horrible period. But it was so bad sometimes that I would like get heat flashes and have to even throw up sometimes. But I had to always have a hot water bottle on me.
And then the gynecologist kept saying, it's fine, she just got her period, that's normal at the beginning. But I felt like something was off. And then my mom would tell me, you're fine, like the professional says you're fine. So, that's just how it works.
My periods were very consistent. They lasted 3 to 4 days. I had cramps, sometimes bad, but nothing Feminox couldn't fix. So for me, it was always very normal. And the only reason I did get it was because I wanted to not buy condoms anymore. And yeah.
After being together for 10 years, I think it's time we take a break. I mean, it's been good, but I just need some time to figure things out.
And I didn't really notice a difference until I went off it and then went on it again.
And I was happy with it for 5 years, but then my serious relationship ended.
I broke up with a boyfriend 3 years later, and then I didn't go off the pill because I thought, oh, it's nice.
And it was the pandemic, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm taking hormones for no reason. I'm not having sex right now. I might as well go off it and see how that is.
And then I got a new boyfriend, and then I was still on the pill, and it was just nice. But then I started reading into it more, doing my research, and then I wanted to try to have my natural cycle. So I went off the pill, and then I was too scared of getting pregnant, taking Plan Bs, even though I used a condom, like always panicking when my period was too late, like just everything. It was so bad. And then I went on the pill again, and then I noticed a change. So I noticed that I got like my sex drive was just so bad, and my moods was like very like numb. I felt very numb.
I quite liked it, but it was also quite weird. I mean, I wasn't having sex at the time, so I knew I wasn't pregnant. But I had a lot of like emotional, I want to say trauma at that moment in my life. So I actually missed my period for like every once in a while because of my emotions. And then I would still get fearful thinking maybe I would get pregnant anyway, even though I knew it wasn't realistic.
I was on a women's retreat, and then everyone all of a sudden got their periods like early, and it was very strange. And then I was on the pill, so I was like, this is not gonna happen to me. But then on the last day, I was bleeding through my pill, which had never happened before. And then I was like, what the because I was already considering stopping. And then a friend of mine at the retreat was like, I think your body just wants to release something. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I think she was right. So then I just tossed the pill. I was like halfway. I just tossed it, and ever since then I've been tracking my cycle and learning about period pain, learning about body temperature, ovulation, like all those kind of things.
But I did like it. I felt like I was way more in touch with my emotions, and I felt like I could really, after my cycle became more regular, start to sense like the symptoms of my cycle. Like, okay, now I'm kind of grumpy. Okay, I'm definitely getting my period in like 2-3 days. Or, oh, I feel really energetic and good. I'm probably like nearing ovulation kind of thing. And I feel like I understood my body better as time progressed. Not right away, like that definitely took a bit of time.
The first time I stopped the pill, emotionally I felt more like myself than ever. But my acne was all over the place, and I was also very, very terrified of pregnancy. At that time I was still in a serious relationship, and I think I was just so used to being on the pill that being off it just felt foreign. Being on it was all I knew. It was what felt comfortable, what felt safe, and I think I just let the fear of the unknown get the best of me, so I went back on the pill.
How was the experience of being on the hormonal IV?
I hated it.
Eventually I got into a relationship that I'm now still in, so it got quite serious. So I did decide to take non-hormonal birth control, the copper spiral.
I remember buying it.
You buy it?
Yeah, I bought it
Oh,
from
you
the.
have to buy it
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah, you have to buy it yourself from the pharmacy.
No way!
Yeah, it's not cheap, girl.
But it hurt a lot. Like, and I know that the first 6 months it can hurt quite a bit.
I was just in constant pain, and I was miserable. It was no.
But it just kept hurting, so I went back again. And it turns out that one of the sides of like the T was poking into the wall of my uterus.
So I told my boyfriend at the time that I was going to wait for 6 months, and if it was still as horrible as before, I would take it out.
So I had to take it out. And then she said maybe in 3 months I could do the more like horseshoe one. So I think 4 months later I came back and put the horseshoe one in. But I still just had horrible cramps, not just right before my period or on my period, but also mid-cycle or like when you're ovulating. So I decided to take it out, and now I don't have anything.
But in the end, he cheated, and he broke up with me, and that was around the 6-month period. And because of the hormones, I'm already a person who has depression, and because of the hormones, it became a lot worse. I didn't listen to my intuition. I kind of decided to neglect it and ignore it. And that brought me to a very low mental health point. But I remember calling the gynecologist after the breakup and kind of explaining the situation to her. And she told me, like, honey, if you want to get it out, if it's hurting you, you can just get it out. And I remember like crying on the phone because I was like, yeah, you're right.
Speaking to different people who have periods made me realize that for some, the IUD or the pill works great, and for others, it doesn't. And some people wish they didn't feel like they needed to rely on it.
Actually, I went on the pill and I had no pain for the first year, and I almost forgot about that I even had bad periods before I started the pill, but it all went away, and then slowly the bad periods came back again after, I think, 4 years of being on the pill. So
I have migraines with aura, so I had to take the specific one that doesn't contain both hormones, it only contains one. So I completely lost my period. I didn't have it for years.
because I would be on the pill but allow myself to have my period, which I guess is not a real period, right? But yeah, so last year it just got worse and worse every time I'd have my period, and then I got to a point where I was like, this is so painful, something is off. Like, I wasn't able to sleep through my nights. I was taking a lot of pills. Well, exactly, I was taking a lot of painkillers, which I usually never do in my daily life. So I really noticed like something must be wrong.
And a few years ago, I wasn't like needing it for health reasons. At least I didn't think that I needed it for health reasons. So I just stopped taking it. It took months to get a period on my own, and even then it was like it would happen, and then 3 months would go by, and then I would get one again, and 2 weeks would go by, and then I would get it again.
Yeah, because I was not able to go on with my normal days when I had my period. So, yeah. And so I did go to a doctor, and then I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I
turned 21, and in the US, that's when everyone says that you should have a gynecology appointment. So I did. And during that, I was finally in a space to be like, hey, I have really, really painful periods, or they're really, really heavy, and no one really talks about that.
Yeah, which I was so happy to also know, because I think in general, when you go through anything related to health and you don't know what it is, you're always just, in a constant state of not even feeling, I think, worse, because you're like, what is wrong with me, and this sucks, and I want a solution. So.
But then they told me that the only way to actually diagnose that is through surgeries. Ultrasounds, they can show you that potentially that's what that is, but the only way to get like the confirmation and an actual diagnosis on like medical files or a medical sheet of any sort is through a surgery.
Apparently you need to do actually a surgery to really confirm it, but they could see some cysts already, like through the scan and everything.
And I didn't really want to go that route. So the only option that they recommend is hormonal birth control again. I was like, I don't want to do that, because no one knows what the long-term side effects of that are.
And then eventually, after 2 years, I was like, okay, I'll change the gynecologist. I know something is wrong with me. And turns out I had polycystic ovaries. And that my gynecologist prescribed me birth control.
Yeah, it's also hard because it's related to infertility, so that's something I worry about a lot, getting like emotional.
And also researching it, you see, okay, PCOS can lead to infertility, can lead to a lot of other issues.
But it is something that I immediately thought of when I also Googled it. I was like, oh my gosh, like if this means I can't have kids, and it's something I've always wanted. So yeah, that was hard to come to terms with, and they basically said, the only thing I can do is not get my period, because that increases the risk of also making it worse and clogging up maybe my fallopian tubes or something like that. So I just kind of went with it.
No one does enough research on it to have found different ways to diagnose it and different ways to treat it.
Their only solution was just take the pill and don't get your period.
It's like a temporary solution. Because there is no real solution. Yeah.
And I was on birth control for a few months, and I was super depressed, super anxious. I gained weight. It just wasn't really working well for me. Eventually I found out what the underlying cause was, which was insulin resistance, and that takes some different types of blood measurements to figure out, because it's not like you can just go to your doctor in the morning and get your blood taken out and see it. Insulin resistance is how your blood sugar and how your insulin react over time. Yeah, then I was put again on birth control, but a different type of birth control. Also didn't work. Then I took another type, and then eventually I realized, okay, birth control is really helping me deal with my symptoms, but what I need to do is tackle those symptoms directly, the underlying cause of it. So eventually, I think around 2-3 years ago, I told my doctor, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to see how my body reacts without it, because I was just scared that I would just get more sick. And ever since then, I've been off of it.
As for now, I'm stopping with the pill. Again.
And I'm not saying I'll never go back on it again, but if I ever do, I don't want it to be out of pure fear like it was last time.
Forever.
But the thing that you're saying, like acne and bloating and pain, all the down parts of having your natural cycle, that's like signs of your body that something's out of balance, maybe also in your life, maybe in your diet. And it's not like you have to just go through that. You can actually like research and like, for example, not eat certain foods or fix your sleeping routine. Like there's a whole lot of things that you're just trying to that you're trying to suppress when you're taking the pill.
Hormones I didn't want to do anymore. And that's also why I'm not on anything now, because the non-hormonal stuff that I know of that is available hasn't been effective to like help me. So then I'd rather do nothing at all and be careful than do something with hormones.
How do you feel about that there's no other option?
I think it kind of sucks. I mean, like, obviously you have things like condoms or, you know, like cycle tracking and things, but they have come with a risk.
Now that I'm off the pill, we do it with a condom, and then during ovulation, because I track my cycle, we do it with a condom and we also pull out. So it's like double safety. But still, I'm like, what if it breaks? What if it slips off? What if like some moist got into my vagina? Like what? There's just so many doom scenarios, and he's always just like, what the?
But I wish there was more done for, I think, birth control research, especially when you hear of like male birth control being developed and a symptom like severe headaches is, you know, stopping them from releasing it on the market. And then if you hear of all the side effects that come with female birth control, it's a shit show. You get headaches, you get acne, you apparently don't even like the same people when you're on birth control. So I think it's disappointing to see, but I'm not surprised with the society we live in. But I do feel like it's changing with how the world is kind of moving.
I have a partner again, yay! But the point is, I talked about it with my now very sweet, cute boyfriend. He immediately said, we both don't want kids. It's something that we're both very sure about. And he said, how about I get a vasectomy? And I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, but that should be completely your decision, because I don't want you to regret it. I need you to go through all the stages of, do you want to freeze in your sperm? Do you want to get the sort of type that can be undone? Like, I really need you to do your research before we push that through. Because he also said to me that he had seen with his previous partner that hormones, like the pill, very badly affected her with her mental health and her well-being. And he said, I don't ever want a woman to go through that. So we have now made an appointment with the hospital, and we do have to have the conversations because we're young. We're both 25, but we got through the first round of questions, so we're gonna get hopefully through the second round of questions.
Are you happy you stopped?
Am I happy I stopped? Sometimes I wish I never stopped. We still live in a man's world, and sometimes I feel like it would just be easier to not have to rebel, but it feels more powerful and more connecting to women and myself to not be on the pill and to actually learn about my cycle. So yeah, I'm happy I stopped. But sometimes like rebelling against the system gets pretty tiring, but like being a woman gets tiring. So
but I do enjoy having a cycle. I remember when it kind of came back after those 6 months, and I was just like crying because it felt so feminine in some sort of way that I was like, I'm so glad that my body is doing what it's supposed to do.
In what aspects do you still see that we live in a man's world?
You can compare the men's cycle to a sun. So it comes up in the morning and it goes down at night, and it's like it's like 24 hour. And the women's cycle is like the moon. It's like every day of the month it's different, and it's like it has all these fluctuations. And I think that society is kind of like based on the men's cycle, you know. I think that it's more acceptable if you're always like this, like always the same. And if you show up differently, then people will look at you like, why are you not smiling? Like, why are you upset this day and happy the next day? Also, my boyfriend's always like, what's happening? Like, you were just happy before, because there's no knowledge about it. So I think that's, yeah. it's not really acceptable, I think, or accepted.
It was honestly really freeing to finally have a solution, but also now after a year not having my period does feel very weird and almost unhealthy and unnatural.
In conversations with your friends, and they're all, I'm getting my period for my vacation, and it's just like colloquially you can't even relate anymore because that's not something that you experience.
Even though I've been told by all the professionals that actually there's nothing wrong with it and that's the best solution, so why am I even questioning to find any other method?
Emotionally, I felt kind of disconnected to my body.
So I've been told many times, when you want to get pregnant, then we'll talk about it and you'll go off the pill and it's all most likely going to be fine.
I also haven't made up my mind because I am so young, but I hope to maybe have kids one day. And to do that, obviously, I'll have to get off birth control.
Which is so frustrating because to me, and I think a lot of women, like you said, whether you hope to get pregnant at some point or not, it's still part of our body and our decision. And I would hate to be in a position where I could have done something different, especially for me, because I've always kind of known that I want to have kids and I love kids. And I think that's why it's sometimes also a really emotional topic, because if that was taken away from me without me having any control over it or a doctor not guiding me properly, I don't know what I would do. That would, honestly, it's shitty to think about it because...
But also, like, in terms of partnership and, like, romantic relationships, when you get to a certain point in your life, that's something that you start looking for in those kinds of relationships, someone who wants the same things as you. And if I can't even answer the question of whether or not it's even a possibility, how do I know if it's something I want?
Yeah. In a way, this doctor is telling you, like, don't worry, but it's like, you're not the one who's going to want to get pregnant, so don't tell me not to worry, because I do, because it's my life. And so I had that experience actually this summer, and I walked away and I just had to cry because I just felt so not heard and misunderstood and like just stupid, honestly, for even questioning it, because I think to them they're just like, I've given you the amazing solution where now you don't have to deal with any of these issues you've had to deal with, so just shut up and keep doing what I'm telling you to do, and then we'll revisit when you want to get pregnant.
And they're never, come back and we'll figure it out. Yeah. And I'm like, I'd love to know. But
I'm not entirely opposed to birth control. I think it can help some people a lot. I maybe in the future go back on birth control, especially because it calms you down as if you're not trying to get pregnant. It's always been a struggle, but for me, why it was important that I address this issue without the help of birth control is because I felt like birth control would help me manage my symptoms, and then I would kind of be more lenient about my other health issues, because the underlying cause for me was insulin resistance causing PCOS. And I think the reason why I was very against continuing birth control was because I didn't want to get to a situation where in 5 years I developed diabetes. Insulin is probably the most important hormone in our metabolic system in the way that how it affects our bodies. And I just learned how to manage it. I learned how to recognize the symptoms, and I learned how to tackle them through diet and through exercise. Which is, I think, a very generic answer, but in all honesty, it's the best answer that I can give in this case. Because, the last time I went to a gynecologist, I didn't have any cysts on my ovaries. So that made me very, very happy and very proud. But also, it's been a journey of around 7-8 years. And I'm still learning, and it's still not something that I take so lightheartedly.
I was always scared of that when I was on the pill, because you know something's not right, but if you research it, then you really have to deal with it. So that's why I was always kind of like avoiding the research, avoiding everything. And now that I've done the research, I feel a lot better about myself, but my body.
Like the decisions that I make every day for my food and my exercise, and how I live and how I sleep and when I wake up, I think it all revolves around PCOS and insulin resistance, and it's not something that I can escape from. So, yeah.
What about all of this frustrates you the most?
I think the fact that no one talks about it.
That's why I like a video like this. I like the idea that people are just taking it into their own hands to start the conversation.
It's the classic maybe response, but it is, I think, all rooted in that women are sometimes not taken seriously.
Some people don't find this out until they're 25, until they're 30. A lot of women find this out because they want to get pregnant and they can't. And at that point, for some, it might be too late.
I think that education should be better, but I also think that we have to research ourselves, because you can always blame the system, but sometimes you just have to do it yourself, get out there yourself. I really recommend the book Period Power.
The lack of information and, it seems, willingness to inform that has been. I know that is changing slowly, but I think the lack of guidance and information for people who have periods.
I think knowing so little. You're like, I wasn't young, you know, I was 21. So you kind of think that you know at that point.
Also planning your month out, like for example doing yoga when you're on your period and doing like boxing when I'm ovulating, like stuff like that. And women don't know a lot about that, and I'm like, I got really frustrated about like, how is this a thing that like, if you don't know, you just don't know. Like no one's gonna tell you because we don't really talk about it. We hide our little tampons and yeah. So that's when I decided to organize workshops and women's circles about these kind of topics, so that we can share and so that we can share knowledge.
But I think TikTok taught me a lot more about IUDs than my biology teacher ever did.
So in the future, hopefully more information available and increased awareness, and also easier, just I wish that it's easier to get diagnosed.
Definitely. Yeah. So just keep speaking about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.